We'll go over the meeting guidelines. We'll do a quick attendance.
Right.
We'll review previous minutes to see if there's any questions that the committee had. Hello, if you're not speaking, can you please mute yourself? We'll also do follow-up from previous month if the items are applicable, and then we'll have updates from CCRB, from the Bronx District's Attorney Office, from FDNY, NYPD 52nd Precinct, and if OEMS is on the line, we'll ask them to provide updates. So we'll get started first with some operational items. I'm going to go over attendance. If you are here, committee member, please say that you're here. So I'll start first. Victor Saldana, present. Samantha Suvatsis.
Samantha Suvatsis, present.
Mirna Calderon.
Myrna Calderon is present.
Right. Manjur Chaudhry.
Manjur Chaudhary present.
Right. Lowell Green is excused. Do we have Marahin Sivajan on the line?
You hear me, my name, Manjur Chaudhary?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you,
Sure.
thank you.
No worries. Marahin Sivajan, do we have you on the line? Yep, great. So we do have quorum. We'll get started. So as mentioned before, we have a long meeting today. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda. So for this evening, we'll first start off with CCRB. So Naki, if I can give to you to present.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm using a new headphones. Wasn't sure. Awesome.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you all. I've frequented our meetings in the past. I was never able to fully discuss things in its full capacity as far as the agency goes. Again, my name is Nikai Cruz. I'm outreach coordinator with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so I can share some of the graphics that we have. But to be honest, I'd rather be interrupted. I'd rather folks just chime in if they have any criticisms or questions. I'm here for that. So please feel free to interrupt at you as you see fit. To be quite honest, Mr. Sirio, is that how you pronounce your name, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, Sirio. Yeah. Back in the day in 2020, when everything was going on, I was very attuned and appreciative of your commentary. I just started the job when you started, so I kind of learned to be a little bit more vocal from your leadership, ironically, sir.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Absolutely. And I look forward to any questions or concerns you have also in particular, because I know you're very involved in the community when it comes to public safety.
Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So as I said, I'm with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. As many of you already know, the Civilian Complaint Review Board is an independent agency that oversees the conduct of the largest police force in the country. So we have roughly about 100 or so investigators overseeing upwards of 35,000 members of service. Members of service simply means officers who are authorized to carry a firearm. And so we are separate from internal affairs. We only investigate allegations of misconduct by members of the NYPD. And so I always have to reiterate the fact that we are all civilians. A lot of individuals confuse us with internal affairs or even the police department themselves, and that's an important distinction. We do have a 15-member board that is it's governed, our decision making up until it reaches the police commissioner is governed by our board. Those individuals are appointed through the city council, one representing each borough. The New York City mayor appoints 5 appointees as well. The NYPD commissioner designates 3 appointees. I always highlight the fact that the NYPD has the authority to designate these 3 designees because of the fact that when we're discussing oversight of any conduct, I don't care if it's McDonald's or NYPD or CCRB, you need individuals who have worked the job and are experts on the job. to know whether or not this is a common protocol or this is something that falls outside of the lines of the rules and regulations. And I'll get more into that. Aside from these three designees that our commissioner designates, the other individuals are legal experts and have no law enforcement experience. The public advocate also, upon recently, within the last year and a half, has been authorized to appoint one member as well. As we know, the role of the NYPD is to maintain order, protect and serve, render aid, and enforce the law within our communities. These terms are not just random terms that they cultivated. This comes directly from the NYPD Police Patrol Guide. This is a guide that's free and available online. We also have it on our website. And it's a guide that indicates the rules and regulations officers are supposed to follow when they're operating within the community. When officers operate outside of these rules and regulations, that's when oversight agencies have the ability to take a look. Specifically, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, CCRB, as more commonly known, we have a specific jurisdiction. An acronym that is helpful to remember is FADO, FADO. That stands for force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. Absolutely feel free, like I said, to interrupt me or put something in the chat, and I'll be happy to discuss more. It's more important for me that we have a back and forth as opposed to me just putting up slides on the screen. I'm sure we're all used to that. On the left side of your screen, you'll see a blue column that indicates specifically within the patrol guide, the rules and regulations that are to be followed during the use of force, during the use of certain tools and weaponry, right? Like the mace, for example. We investigate excessive or unnecessary use of force. So real quick, just to break the ice, is it ever okay for an officer to use force?
No? Sorry.
Is it ever okay? All right, so Samantha says it's never okay for an officer to use force.
No.
Yes, it is.
Well, that is, you know what, Serial, you're right about that. I took it the wrong way. You're absolutely right.
So yeah, so and I welcome the discussion. It's great that we're having this discussion. And so yeah, in certain circumstances, the officer may have to use force to overcome a certain level of force, right? At the end of the day, you know, their job is to, on top of many, you know, maintain order. There might be a situation where they have to use force, right? And so but we're talking about situations where it's excessive or unnecessary. That can be whether the officer is punching or kicking or using a weapon like their baton or taser. We get reports about officers using inanimate objects such as a chair or a radio to subdue a member of the public, okay? Or maybe the handcuffs are too tight, scarring the individual, leaving them with scars. You know, in those instances, the agency can absolutely investigate. And so, of course, last but certainly not least is the use of the firearm, right? And I want to make it clear that simply reaching for your firearm is a show of force, right? Let's forget about if they're a police officer or not. If an individual has a firearm and it's visible to you, that could be perceived as something that's forceful, dangerous, it's scary. You know what I mean? To be real. And so if an officer feels justified in reaching for their firearm, feels justified in pointing the firearm, and ultimately using that firearm, that's something that may be perceived as excessive or unnecessary, and that's something that could be investigated. Are there any questions about that in particular? Okay, abuse of authority. That's the largest category of misconduct that we investigate. It can stem from anything from an improper search, improper frisk. It could be a threat, for example. We know that we live in a sanctuary city. So threats regarding a member of the public's immigration status, for example, we get reports of an officer, you know, asking, wait, are you a citizen or not? Literally. And that's something that falls out of the lines, out of the purview of their jurisdiction, right? Like I said, we're supposed to live in a sanctuary city, and it's not their lane to question immigration status. If we get reports about that, that's something that absolutely we would investigate. Another aspect is the forcible removal to a hospital. We know that we just went through the last 2 years of some different times, to say the least. It was a challenging time for many of us. But prior to that, New York City has been dealing with a mental health crisis. We get reports of officers when they feel that the member of the public does not comply to their order, they then threaten to take them to a psychiatric ward because they say, you know what, you're not responding in a way that that is acceptable, and so therefore I may have to take you to a psychiatric facility. Those kinds of threats are something that the CCRB takes very seriously, and we would want to look into that as well. In addition to covering up their badge number, not providing their name during an encounter, these are instances that the agency also wants to look into. I see we have something in the chat here. Okay, understood. I will keep this on the briefer side. One of the more profound updates that we have is the agency's ability to investigate sexual misconduct. That can include everything from verbal sexual harassment all the way leading to assault and rape. And so this is a new unit that we are building out with a team of investigators and sensitive people who have been trained to not re-traumatize victims. So this is another aspect of investigation that we do follow. Most recently as well, because I want to provide updates to you, is we have we're starting to roll out our bias-based policing and racial profiling elements. An encounter stemming from a specific incident that is motivated by bias or based on animus against a member of the public. So that can be whether they're identifying a protected class, such as your race, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. Okay, last but not least is this courtesy. It's when an officer, for example, I'm just going to give an example because it's quicker. We recently got a report with a member of the force was asking an individual for their ID. The individual hands them their ID. The officer takes the ID and then returns it by throwing it onto the floor, causing the member of the public to pick it up off the floor. And so on the side of every police vehicle, marked police vehicle, are the acronym CPR. I'm not going to ask anybody in the room what CPR may stand for because I know we're pressed on time, but it stands for courtesy, professionalism, and respect. That's not just a detail or a decal, a style they want to put on the side of the vehicle. That comes directly from the police patrol guide. When they're operating within our communities, they're supposed to operate on a level of courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Went over effective language already. One of the most important things I want you to take away from this presentation, particularly with the children that are within your families, people who are out in the street, out and about, is the Right to Know Act. It is now a law. The Right to Know Act is to know who is stopping you, who are you encountering with, right? So what's the officer's name, their badge number, what precinct do they operate out of? In most situations, the officer is supposed to be proactive with providing you that card, which looks like this, okay? Not just any business card. They're supposed to be proactive with providing you this card. In the event that they're not proactive with providing the card, you are more than welcome to politely ask, officer, may I please have your right to know business card? And that way, in that regard, that will remind them that, of course, I'm dealing with a member of the public who knows their rights, and we're holding each other accountable, so to speak, right? Because the officer most likely will get your contact information, and in case you have to follow up, you can have their contact information. On the back of that right to know business card is how you can request the body camera footage if the officer indeed was wearing a body cam, and how you can make a comment or complaint. So CCRB, we accept complaints from not just residents of New York. If a member of the public is commuting through New York for work or what have you, if it's dealing with a member of the NYPD, that falls under our jurisdiction. Force, abuse of authority, discouraging offensive language. Oftentimes, we might get a complaint about a school safety agent or even FBI. In those cases, we refer it out to the proper authority and we inform the complainant within 48 hours. You might be asking yourself how to file a complaint. The easiest way is to call 311. You call 311, you ask for CCRB, they'll connect you right away to us. Our office is indeed open, so you are more than welcome to come down to 100 Church Street. We currently are working out of the office. You can also file a complaint at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. Most recently, we've been able to receive complaints as well via social media. You would have to tag CCRB_NYC. The process of a complaint simply is going through our intake line. If you do not speak English, we have translators who are available. If it falls within our jurisdiction, we will then transit over to our investigations unit. Our investigation unit has what's called subpoena power. They can gather any evidence that is relevant to your case, whether that is a security camera at the bodega or outside the Popeyes, speaking to the cashier who served you the food that day, who maybe witnessed the encounter with a police officer. We can even request the memo books that police officers carry with them that document their operations, as well as body cam footage. Over that, I know we're pressed on time. Another important aspect on CCRB's mediation is that there are certain instances where an officer and an individual have, they might have an issue, quite frankly, and the investigation unit will present to the individual who complained about the incident, would you be willing to sit down for mediation with the officer? What's great about this is that the mediator doesn't work for the agency. They don't work for the NYPD. They're just a third-party de-escalationist. And if the officer agrees to come to the meeting and the member of the public agrees to come to the meeting, and 90% of the time from our record, it's successful. That just means that 90% of the time, the member of the public who filed the initial complaint gets up and is satisfied with the discussion that they had with that officer. I've even seen situations where they high-five each other and they exchange phone numbers. You know what I mean? That's awesome. But at the end of the day, if you, as a complainant, feel uncomfortable with that experience, if you feel, for whatever reason, that the mediation was not satisfactory for you, you can experience it and then get up and then tell us, you know what, I wasn't satisfied with that. I want the investigation to continue. At which case we will continue the investigation. If you are satisfied with the mediation, there's no investigation that takes place, and the officer has no reflection of this incident in their personnel record because it was mediated. Victor, how are we on time? Feel free to interrupt me if I'm going too long. I understand.
No, this is great. I wonder if you can just give us an overview, if you can get your last slide, and then I just open it to the community to see if they have any questions for you or CCRB, and then we can continue on our packed agenda here.
Understood. Thank you very much. The last slide I want to bring you to is we have our member of service database online, and I'll share that in the chat. I wanted to highlight the 52nd precinct here. I'm sorry, forgive me for these numbers here, as that is not relevant from a prior presentation I was preparing for. But this is for the 52nd precinct, and I wanted to highlight the fact that first of all, it's not one of the highest precincts in the city, and so that's a good thing. You know what I mean? And so in 2019, the number of complaints that we received at the agency was 105. In 2020, during the pandemic, which a lot of activity was happening, it was at 81 total complaints, right? But as you see, it actually went down, right? It went down for offensive language, discourtesy, abuse of authority, and force. Those are all those numbers went down. You know, it could be partially because a lot of people were outside, a lot of people were indoors quarantined, but also we do know a lot of people were outside, right? Doing all kinds of activities. And then again, in 2021, it also decreased. We have 65 for total complaints, force is 29, abuse of authority is 56, discourtesy, the only thing that went up slightly was offensive language. And then as of now, for 2020. We're now in April. We're at 13, 4, 10, 6, and 2. And quite frankly, you know, these numbers are it's a progression towards good, right? And you know, and so it's good that, you know, the complaint numbers are going down, and I would imagine that that the actual activities are getting better, the operations are getting better, you know, especially under all of us being under new leadership. The last thing I want to bring your attention to is the policy department. It's important for us as community members, whether we're from the Bronx or another borough, to report instances that we feel may have been misconduct. I'm not an attorney, you know what I'm saying? A lot of my peers and whatnot are not attorneys. And if they feel like they've seen something that maybe seems wrong, or if they've experienced something, you can allow professionals to investigate that, and we can take a look at it and determine whether or not it was indeed misconduct or miscommunication. And with that, I just want to re-acknowledge the fact that the outreach team is available to do workshops, Know Your Rights, in person, virtually, 7 days a week. Houses of worship, house parties, it doesn't matter, we'll be there. Thank you very much, Victor, and I would love to answer some questions. I'm sorry that I didn't have enough time to go through everything.
No, thank you, Nakia. And I think this is great information. It's good to know that, you know, things are getting better. I know it's a lot of violence, especially here in the 52nd precinct, but thank you for the presentation. I hope you share this, and we'll add it to the minutes as well, so that way folks can read through it, and if they have any questions, they can reach out to you. So before I open up to the public, I just want to see if there's any questions from the committees for CCRB. Okay, I think the committee, it's pretty understandable. So I just want to open to the public, see if there's any questions from the public or any items they'd like to bring up to CCRB this evening. I do see one hand up. Let me see. So Syria, go ahead. You're muted, Syria.
Thank you. I noticed on the thing it said level stops, level 1 and level 3. I'm sorry, level 2, level 3. Could you explain the differences? I never heard that expression.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. I appreciate that. So I'm going to pull it up right now. So essentially, as I'm pulling this up, depending on this pertains to the Right to Know Act, right? And so under certain situations, an officer is supposed to be proactive with providing their Right to Know Act business card. If they don't have the card on them, which understandably I run out of business cards, they can write, everyone has a paper, they can write down their name, the precinct that they operate out of, and their command number. But what I am going to pull up right now for you are specifically the levels in which officers and members of the public should be aware of, so that we can know our rights, but also know our responsibilities when dealing with when interacting with members of the NYPD. 1 second, I'm going to share it right here. Okay. So so basically, level 1 stop is a request for information. You know, where are you going? Are you coming from, you know, that store? Where do you live? In those situations, you are well within your right to request from the officer, excuse me, officer, may I have your right to know business card? You know, and that's no problem with that. A lot of times with some of the more, you know, with some of the younger folks I deal with, you know, they may not even feel comfortable giving their name to the officer, you know, and that's understandable too, you know, but I always explain that there's certain levels to these stops. And so level 2, a common law right inquiry, that can look like something like where they're actually implying something. You know, do you have anything sharp in your pockets that can hurt me? Did you buy drugs? Are there any weapons located here? In those situations, you're still well within your right to request your right to know act business card. And and exercise your right to say no if the officer does not have probable cause for the search. Okay. So when we start getting to suspicion in level 3, where officer supposed to identify themselves, like it says that they must identify themselves, which is true, but we understand I understand that it does not always happen. You know what I mean? And like now officers always have the right to know business card on them, for example. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it's okay, but this is the world that we live in. And so, officers must identify themselves and give an explanation for the encounter. Why are you stopping me, officer? Like, may you please explain why I'm being stopped here? And so in these situations is when you ask the officer, like I always tell the young folks, officer, am I free to leave? If you're under 18, I tell my own family members, officer, I don't feel comfortable asking questions around, without my parents here, my guardian, can we contact my guardian, or am I free to leave? All right. When we get to level 4, it's not even listed because at level 4, that is the arrest. Okay, so I'll try to pull it up closer for you. At level 4, that is the arrest, and you will be getting the officer's contact information regardless, because it's gonna be documented. And so there's certain situations like sobriety stops, for example. Let's say outside of a Knicks game or like a Super Bowl, when they have to do checkpoints to make sure people aren't drunk driving. In those situations, you're not going to ask for a right to know card every single time. You know what I mean? So like a lot of this stuff, there is a lot of black, there's a lot of gray, and a lot of spectrum. But the reality is that there's certain laws and protocols that are supposed to be followed, and responsibilities that are also supposed to be followed by us civilians. And so
this for uniform officers, plainclothes is, of course, I mean, I assume detectives in plainclothes still exist, and but this is for uniform officers. Am I correct, or is it for all officers?
All officers that identify themselves, members of service officers who carry firearms, whether they're plainclothes or specifically the detectives or police officers. They are supposed to adhere to the Right to Know Act. And I will be sharing this with your board. I'll share the specifics specifically.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we continue the agenda? Please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Great, I think that's it. Thank you, Nakia, for this evening, and please forward the slides and we'll add it to the minutes as well.
Thank you.
Great, so moving on to the next item, we'll start with Bronx District Attorney's Office. Do we have any representation from the Bronx DA?
Hi, Victor, I'm on. It's Erica.
Erica, okay. All right, if you want to give an update or if you have anything to share, please.
So we will be extending the drop-offs for the prom dress giveaway until Monday. We currently have 274 prom dresses collected. We've had people even mail them in. We also have our Denim Day March coming up, which I think you guys have the flyer. I'm not sure if it was attached to the agenda or not, because I wasn't able to open it on my end. Our 5th annual Child Safety Fair at PS5, which is going to be Saturday, April 30th from 11 to 3. And then with regard to our concept program, so initially my title was a concept program coordinator, and it's our educational program. We also do provide programming and workshops to community centers, churches, and small groups besides being in schools. And if you guys have any suggestions for schools, we are currently doing workshops instead of the actual full curriculum because it's so close to the end of the school year. But we cover things such as substance use and substance abuse disorder, that we cover that for parents as well as children. We cover peer pressure, decision-making, and how to properly combat bullying and cyberbullying, as well as internet safety. Right now, we live in such a digital time that some parents have no idea just how dangerous it can be online for their children, whether they're playing the online video games, whether they're chatting, or even while they were on Zoom for school. There was often times where we would get calls asking for workshops on internet safety, and parents asking, well, how can I, keep my child from accessing certain things? If you guys have any questions, I'll put my contact information in the chat. And I can also send you over the brochure for our concept program. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Yes, we'll attach the slides. I think they were attached to the agenda, but if not, we'll make sure that the district manager attached them to the minute, and also to send it out as a blast to the whole community as well as a reminder. So I just want to open up to committee members, see if there's any questions for Bronx DA's office. I don't see any hands raised, so I know we're here at time, so I'm going to open to the public, see if there's any questions from the public for the Bronx DA's office. Good. I think there's no questions. Thank you so much, Erica. So we'll attach those items to the minutes. All these fun activities the Bronx DA office is working on. So next on this evening's agenda, we did have a presentation from FDNY this evening, but they had to drop. So we'll reach out to them to see if they can send us a presentation so we can inform the public of fire prevention safety for our community. With that being said, I do want to open now up to NYPD's 52nd precinct to give us an update. So Officer Costa, I think I see you on the line, so I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Victor. I hope everyone is well. Again, if nobody knows me, my name is Officer Costa. I'm the crime prevention officer in the 52 precinct. So briefly, I'm just going to go over some of the crime stats that are for the current 28-day period up to April 10th. For the current week, I don't have it, but this goes from March 14th to April 10th. So for the 28-day period, overall, there's been an uptick in crime citywide. Even though there's still a little bit of a slight uptick from the past couple of weeks, we have gotten a lot better with slight crimes up here in the index crimes. So for the 28-day period, some good news. We have 0 murders, homicides. We have 0 rapes. This is also for the 7-day period as well, week-to-date period. We've seen a little bit of an uptick in robberies. We're up by 6 from last year. Week to date, we're up by 4. Felony assaults, we're up by 13. 28-day period. For week to date, we're up 4. Burglaries are up by 2, which is 11% from last year. Week to date, it's been 0 to 2. Week to date last year is the same thing, 2 week to date. Grand larcenies have gone down significantly. We are down 24%, which is 14 less than last year, which is great news. Week to date, we are down 10%, which is 1 from last year. GLAs are still slightly higher. They've gotten better from the last couple of months. We're up by 8, 22 from last year. We've had 14. A lot of those were coming from unattended vehicles. And also mopeds. Mopeds have been, we're up actually 116% from last year, which is 7 more, which has significantly drawn that number up. Felony assaults, a lot of them have been happening from domestics. The percentage I have for domestics is 60%. So a lot of our felony assaults are usually from domestic incidents. That are non-domestic incidents are only up by 7, which is only 38%. So this is what drives our number up for felony assaults. Grand larcenies are up. Only reason why is because a lot of unattended property, pocketbooks. There's been a few of them in Montefiore Hospital where there's been property laid down and taken by an unknown person. I believe there's some wanted flyers that are going to be going out on that shortly. Identity theft is still up. Even though it's gone down significantly, we're still up. We're still up by, excuse me 1 second, 6 from last year. So it's just something to keep in mind. This is the time of year where a lot of people are going to be trying to do that because it is tax season. So they know a lot of bank scams. People are going to keep attempting to try to either ATM skim or find ways to obtain people's information to commit identity theft. So give me 1 moment. I got a lot of papers in front of me. Robberies. So our robberies are up. Primarily, one of the reasons why is because of commercial establishments, which brings me a little bit to the patterns I'm going to talk about. There's been 1 robbery, if you just give me a moment, where a gentleman on a moped, which this has been open since March 22nd. We've had 1 incident, 215 East Fordham Road. Individual on a black moped forcefully removing property, simulating that he either has a firearm and snatches the property off the victim and then takes off. Luckily, we've only had 1 victim, one incident from that pattern. Burglaries. Good news about burglaries. We've had 2 patterns. Excuse me. I'm gonna get back to robberies. I'm sorry. I'm seeing another robbery, which was in Sector C. It was 204 on Webster Avenue. Individuals that fled in a black Mercedes. Multiple perpetrators displaying firearms. The good news is they have made multiple arrests on that by our robbery units, our Bronx robbery units. So that's good news on that. Getting into the burglaries. We've had some significant burglaries in jewelry shops. We've had one on Gun Hill Road in Webster. This pattern was also opened up on the 22nd. Jewelry stores basically, excuse me, this is a grand larceny pattern. Individuals going in there, looking at property, let me see the watch. They've been looking at it, grabbing it, running out the door as fast as they could. We've only had 1 incident again, but this is still ongoing. And there's been a lot of incidents throughout the Bronx, multiple 40 precinct 41, 43. So if anybody knows any jewelry store, pawn shops or anything like that, I've gone out there. I've given them some warnings on this. Keep the cameras rolling. If you have any security measures that they have any questions on that they could do. But so far we've been good with that grand larceny pattern. Only 1 incident. Shootings. I'm just going to get into the shootings briefly. We've been very well in shootings overall for the 28-day period. If you just give me a moment. We're down in shootings overall from 2021. Sector A, we're down from 1. There was 2 from. Give me 1 moment. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong sheet. Just give me a moment. So overall, we've been down for the 28-day period. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I have an old sheet in front of me on the shootings. I've got 2 of them. Okay, week 14. I apologize. 28-day, we're down 75% in shootings. Week to date, we're down 100% from last year. So that's good news. However, we did have a shooting last night on 194 in Briggs Avenue. That's still an ongoing investigation right now from the squad. So overall, that's good news as well that shootings have been down. That's all I have for the stats. If anybody has any questions, if I maybe missed something, just let me know. If you guys like, I also have a little bit of a briefing on the neighborhood safety team, breakdown of how they're operating. If you want me to go over that real quickly. So in the last meeting, my commanding officer elaborated on it. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of insight on the neighborhood safety team. So we all know we had 1 active right now, which consisted of 1 sergeant, 4 to 5 officers. Right now, we're going through a change in supervision because their supervisor did move on to another unit, so they will be appointing another supervisor soon. We all know that the officers that are on the neighborhood safety teams, they have distinct uniforms, which I'll go over in a moment.
Officer Costa, would you like me to share the YouTube video for folks to see for 2 minutes? Since we do have time, as FDNY did not present this evening.
Okay.
Would you like me to just present the video?
Yeah, you could do that.
So, and that way you can catch a breather there. So, hi, committee members, I'll present the video. Let me know if you can hear it and see it. If not, we'll see how we can work it out. Give me 1 second here.
Thank you, Victor.
Of intelligence-based policing is beginning now in New York City with the deployment of the NYPD's new neighborhood safety teams. These hand-selected, highly trained officers integrate crime reduction, precision policing, and community engagement in a concentrated effort to remove illegal guns from our streets and to address all crime conditions that impact our public safety and quality of life. The teams will be focused in the handful of precincts and public housing areas that account for the vast majority of shootings in our city. This is a highly collaborative approach, which relies on strong communication between the police and the community we serve. After all, no one knows a neighborhood better than the people who live and work there, and no one has a greater stake in its security. We will work together at every turn. And here's what New Yorkers can expect to see when their neighborhood safety teams are deployed across the city. A modified version of the NYPD uniform with clear, instantly recognizable markings that identify them as police officers. Body-worn cameras, and every vehicle will also be equipped with a dashboard-mounted camera. This is a reimagined, redesigned approach to suppressing violent street crime, and it starts with getting the right people to do the job. Officers and supervisors applying to the unit are extensively vetted, and their work history with the NYPD is thoroughly reviewed. Once selected, each member undergoes 50 hours of training over 7 days, including training on the constitutional aspects of policing, specialized instruction in safety and tactics, law and policy, conflict resolution, de-escalation, and more. And the training continues with regularly scheduled refresher courses taught throughout the year. The NYPD and the people we serve are in this together. And we are of one mind. Violence and disorder should never be tolerated in our city. To that end, the neighborhood safety teams are the next component in the department's public safety mission, because we will never stop fighting for New Yorkers.
All right, so hopefully everyone was able to see that. Hopefully there's no issues with the video. So Officer Costa, I'll open it back to you if you just want to give like a brief overview, any things that the public should take from that 2-minute presentation video.
Yeah, so the video said a lot. I'm gonna go into just like the breakdown of of their hours and what they're gonna focus on. As it said, it's gonna focus a lot on violent crime conditions, robberies, felony assaults, patterns, illegal firearms. They are gonna work hand in hand with like our FIO units, our field intelligence teams, and our NCO teams. So just want to reiterate to everybody that the neighborhood safety team does not take the place of the NCOs. The NCOs are still going to be around, and they're still going to have contact with the community as well. The neighborhood safety team also will be attending future meetings when they can, and you could speak to them directly, get their contact numbers, and so on. They're going to be primarily in unmarked vehicles. If you saw in the video, their uniforms are very distinct. You're going to see that they do have the identification on the back of their jackets that say NYPD Police. In the front right, it's going to have NYPD Police with their precinct. And to the left chest area, you're going to see that they have their names, their shields, and above is you're going to see their rank. So if it's a police officer, it's their shield of police officer, sergeant, lieutenant. Right now, we don't actually have lieutenants, but so the main difference is you're going to see in their uniform is that they do not have any patches on the side of their uniform as we do, let's say, police department, city of New York. It gives them, you know, like I said, they'll be in unmarked vehicles, which gives them, you know, anytime they respond to heavy jobs such as firearm jobs, it just gives them, you know, more of a tactical advantage to assess the situation. But once they're displayed, you can see their uniforms very clearly, and they're very identifiable. That's all I pretty much have on the neighborhood safety team. If anybody has any question on them or any crime or on the crime stats, you can let me know or say it on the chat. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Officer Acosta. So I want to open us first to committee members, see if they have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question about the uniform because this is Myrna Calderon. I'm just concerned because I know when normal officers wear their uniforms, they have their bulletproof vests and stuff. So how are the police officers being protected now if they're walking around in almost like street clothes, but I don't see the normal protections for the officers. So last thing we want is officers becoming targets, walking around with not the proper protection.
Yeah, that's a good question. They do, Victor, I don't know if you still have that sheet with the uniform. So they do have a vest on. There's multiple different uniforms they'll wear for the time of year. All of them are protected and vested. You're gonna see one that kind of looks like they're just wearing a shirt, but it's actually a vest on the top left.
Okay.
That's actually the same vest that every officer does have. On the bottom left there, you're going to see a real, a jacket, but they do have a vest under that. And the right picture of them is just the back version of that. So
this one is, are you saying this one with short sleeve is summer
yeah,
fashion?
It's still a little concerning to me because, when a police officer is undercover, he's undercover. And we know they can't, but it's, unless they're exposed, nobody's going to use it for target practice. But now you're having the safety team going in. I'm a little bit concerned that the safety is, I'm looking out for you guys. I'm not so thrilled with, if you're going into the community, you're being identified as police officers, but you're not having the same protection. It's kind of a little, I'm not so happy with that. This maybe Eric Adams needs to think about that a little bit better. But go ahead.
Yeah, but they do carry the same equipment. Again, if you look at the picture, they do have their gun belts. They do have everything that an officer does have.
Yeah.
Routine patrol, so that's a good thing. And the vehicles that they have also do have the bulletproof inside as well. So
okay,
it is that it's in just a parts.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut. Are the patrols on cars, or are they also walking around on the street?
In terms of neighborhood safety?
Yes.
They're going to be in vehicles. Yeah, they're primarily unmarked vehicles. As of right now, it's just basic, I guess, Fords and stuff like that, but they will have different types of vehicles that are specifically assigned to the police department for them to use. But they will not be in marked vehicles.
And for our community, for Bronx CB Board 7, how are they being assigned throughout our community or throughout our district?
So they're basically going to be assigned to any type of areas where the crimes are upticked or anywhere there's crime conditions. So for example, any isolated incident, usually they will, be patrol deploying and stuff like that. But if there's some sort of a trend, a pattern, or anything like that, they'll be assigned. So let's say there's a robbery in Sector Adam. There's been 2 stores. This is all an example. Broken into. They're going to focus a lot of their directed patrols on the areas of where there's commercial stores or the type of stores that are being robbed. If there's been robberies in lobbies or anything like that, that's considered a violent crime. They're going to be in the area, which is wherever it is, Sector A, Sector C. They do cover a lot of ground. They're going to be covering, we have 4 large sectors in the command. Another thing I forgot to mention is that even though we have 1 unit right now, they're working on deploying another unit with another supervisor. And shortly, it's just a matter of them getting trained, getting their uniforms and stuff like that. That was something that was brought up at the last meeting. The more officers we have, the more grounds we can cover. So, if there's things going on in Sector A and Sector D, basically upticks, patterns, felony assaults, robberies, any type of intel with gangs, they're going to be focusing a lot of their attention on whatever it is as per the need of the precinct.
That's great. And then thank you so much for the information regarding the stats and the crimes. Recently, we've seen, I guess we hear all over the news and we see ourselves that crime has gone up, and hearing the stats for precinct 52nd, it seems like things are down. So are you saying that at least in our community, things aren't as crazy as we hear in the news compared to like all these other shootings or robbery? And I'm just talking because recently I heard of a robbery of a 16-year-old on West Fordham Road and near the church in a supermarket. I'm not sure if there's like any investigation to that, and like how is that counted towards the crime if only $80 were stolen and stuff like that.
Yeah, we still have incidents. The numbers are for the 52nd are still significantly more down than other precincts. I believe it was on Tuesday where there was, I believe, 10 people shot borough wide, but the 52nd precinct, we had none. So they held officers borough wide for that purpose of the shootings, but we, thank God, thankfully, we were good in that aspect. So the crime is still a little bit slightly uptick, but not as bad as it was in the past couple of months. The numbers, the red is still there, but we're not as high as we have been. Again, we've had SRG units every day. This has been, I believe, maybe 1 or 2 days they have it out of the week. I'm not too sure. But we've had resources from citywide in the 52nd precinct throughout Sector C, Sector B, and Sector D. We're talking about units, SRG units. They've deployed harbor units for the day, multiple units from around the city to come and concentrate their attention to the 52nd precinct because of the uptick we've had in the last couple of months. Again, they're still a little bit high, but they're getting better. And we're hoping that these numbers, I could look at my sheet and I could see a lot of minuses, hopefully, as the months go by. So again, there are a lot of units out there. I see them every day. If you come within certain, you're going to see a ton of cars parked out front with different unit names. They're here for that presence purpose to bring down the crime. There's still robberies going on, things like that. We can't fully stop it, but we are doing a lot better, and hopefully I'm praying that in the next couple of months, the numbers keep going down.
Thank you, Professor Costa. So before I open up to public for some questions, from our last meeting, committee members brought up some items. I guess one of them was about speeding cars not stopping near schools, more specifically at Briggs until 2nd Street, next to PS8. The committee members have mentioned that, there is traffic cops there, but it seems that they don't even the traffic cops can't do much about it. Has there been any update if the NYPD is sort of keeping an eye out, helping NYPD traffic with those cars that are speeding next to PS8?
Yeah, they've written quite numerous summonses over the last 2 months. A lot of them I have a printout here I just got as an email. My traffic sergeant reported me that in the month of April, so far, this was given to me, he sent me this, I guess, 2 days ago. They've written 17 moving violations around 201 in Valentine, 201 in Briggs. There's been 26 summonses written on 201 in Briggs, 15 summonses written around 201 in Bainbridge, and 11 summonses written around 201 in Perry. So they did go out there. Our traffic units did direct throughout the month and March as well. They've written in those same areas. The numbers are 8, 19, 12, and 9 from those 4 locations I gave you. They have been over there writing a lot of summonses because it was a big concern. Another 2 areas that they're going to be, I don't have any numbers for those 2 areas, but like I believe 205 and Webster Avenue, they were complained there's been cars driving by a lot of the buses with the stop signs. So I'm going to get some updates on that for the following meeting and to see what they produced there. And then another location that was been a concern to us was University Avenue in Kingsbridge. That's been an area there too where people have been, there have been complaints of like speeding vehicles. So, but right now for that area of the school that they've been out there and they've been addressing.
Great, thank you so much, Officer Costa. Now I'll just open up first to committee members, see if there's any additional questions. I do see Samantha has her hands up, so Samantha, just open up to you.
Thank you, Victor. I got a question. In terms of trying to get like a school guard, a crossing guard, like right there on Briggs and 202nd, is that PD or is that traffic or is that like a combination? Who would we go to request a crossing guard to just be there?
Yeah, I could bring it up to my higher ups on that. We do have a crossing guard supervisor that I'm pretty sure if I inform him, he can go through the channels and then see what they can get some personnel over there.
Okay, because I know
there's not a crossing guard there. I thought there was one.
No, you know where the crossing guard is? The crossing guard is on Bainbridge and Mashalou. There years ago there was a crossing guard on Mashalou and 203rd and Briggs, but yeah, up there it's just that there's a speed bump right there, and they go flying. And the school safety officer comes out to direct traffic because I've seen her.
What was the cross street again? I'm sorry, I'm writing this down.
For PS8, it's right on Briggs and 202nd.
Briggs and 202. Okay. Yeah, I'll bring it up to my commander, see if there's any personnel. I'm pretty sure they can work something on that.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. So before we move to the public, I do see that Myrna has posted in the chat, Officer Costa, like, what are the NYPD's 52nd precinct plan for illegal car washes, specifically on Bailey Avenue, where they're blocking sidewalks and triple parking?
Yeah, that's been brought up in the last meetings. I'm going to bring it up again to the NCOs. I'm not too sure if they actually did go out on them. I know they were on earlier today, but then they got deployed or something like that. So I don't think they're on the meeting, but I'm not too sure exactly what was done in terms of that, but I know they brought it up in past meetings. But I'll take a note. Now, like I said, I'll bring it up to Sergeant O'Brien and see where they, any updates on that.
Sounds good. So I don't think we have any more questions from committee members. So I'll open up first to Staff A, if you want to give us your name and your question. You want to unmute yourself? Staff A, are you there? So Staff, we are not able to hear you, so we'll move on to Serial until Staff gets this audio up and ready.
If you can include PS 56 on the Decatur and 207th, they go by that street too. Where their crossing guard is there. There's no stop sign. It only goes on one. It's not a four-way stop sign. So they don't pay attention to the crossing guards. I had many complaints there. And also the locations for car wash. There's one right in front of 195th Street and Jerome Avenue, right next to the school where the kids are coming in and out. And this guy is washing cars there and backing up traffic, especially in the afternoon when the kids got to get out and the parents are trying to pick them up. And that van is always there 24/7. at 195th and Jerome Avenue. And there's a whole bunch of them on Jerome. But that one particular is right where the schoolyard is, and that's where the kids cross to go into the school. They should need to be removed from there.
Oh, I noticed. I've seen that actually on my way home sometimes. It creates that parking condition. It's really, really terrible. But I'll bring it, like I said, I wrote it down now, and I'll bring it up to the NCOs and Sergeant O'Brien.
Officer Costa, for those items, do these folks that are doing these illegal car wash, do they get summonses for their parked cars, or after certain summonses, do they get towed or anything like that?
They can get summons, yeah. I don't have like what they have written. Again, the NCOs would know more if they've actually written stuff. A lot of times, they get the summons, they'll just come right back. It's just, I'm not too sure how much the fine is for all that. I mean, blocking the hydrant. And from what I've heard in the past, this is not recently, like they have been summoned. It's just a matter of them getting the message, and like I said, I'll have an update for that for you. I'm writing all this down, and any like I have for the summonses, I'm going to look up to see if there was any type of enforcement on that. But it's really hard on our end to see that because those are, I believe they're civil summonses sometimes. So I don't think we have access to like run the civil summonses. We, traffic patterns, we can actually see what was done, and criminal court, stuff like that. But again, I'm going to do my best to, relay the message and get, whatever updates. And I'll also relay the messages as well to the NCOs.
Yes, please, officer, because it's becoming a real problem, and it's just going to get worse as the summer continues.
Correct.
I mean, they're blocking traffic. I mean, I know you said civil summons, but we can give tickets for blocking traffic. I mean, they're triple parked. Some of the cars are on the sidewalk. They're blocking people from walking. Something has to be done. So.
Yeah. And then let's try again. So Seth, if you want to unmute yourself and try again, see if your microphone's working. Seth, you might be double muted. We do not hear you. If you want, Seth, you can post your question on the chat, and I'm happy to ask it to Officer Acosta.
Real quick, Victor, if I get a moment, I just want to announce the future NCO meetings and the National Night Out.
Sure.
After everybody has questions,
Yeah, so Eric, if you can just post your question, and then Seth will give you another try, and then we'll close this portion and give it back to Officer Acosta. So Eric, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. The hydrants, when we do the 311 complaints, so let's say we do one address, and then you go up the block more. Are the officers supposed to summons everybody that's in a hydrant, or just the one that you do a complaint?
Yeah, they'll deploy. If you put it over 311, it comes over our system every day, and then it goes to our front desk. When they usually can also deploy patrol officers. So the 311 is really good because if you put the specific vehicle, make it model, like what vehicle it is. A lot of people just say there's a van doing this, stuff like that. And if they see the cops coming, they may want to move, but it all depends if the officer even gets a chance to get there. But yeah, the officer can go and summons the vehicle for even being on the hydrant. So that's the beauty of 311. If you put it up there, just say like the type of vehicle it is, and they can go right to it and summons it. Even if the guys they try to be slick sometimes and turn everything off and act like they're just sitting there waiting. Again, I don't know what officers see. I mean, I would do that. If I have a 311 complaint and I see the car on the hydrant, I can say what I would do. The officer, the person will get a summons from me. So what other officers are doing, I'm not sure. Like I said, it's the 311 really helps deploy officers over there. That's a daily thing that our front desk overlooks, and they do deploy. So
Um, yeah, no, I do. Usually you have some good officers that do the job, but sometimes they just make a report saying that they passed and the car still parked in the hydrant all overnight, and then they don't even get a summons. So those are like the repeat offenders that they do that every night. The ones that get away, but the ones that get summons, they stop doing it.
Yeah, I can't answer for what like other officers don't do. You know, you can call the precinct main line if you want to speak to like one of the supervisors, you know, get an update, say, listen, I did call 311, you know, any officers over here, you know, what's the update on that? Because the supervisor can deploy whichever officer, call the officer that's assigned and get an update from him. So that's another option for you if you really feel like, you know, something wasn't done. And a lot of reasons too is because, you know, like I said, I'm not there, but officers do have to go to, you know, disputes or a knife job or anything like that. Sometimes they don't even get to it, depending on the day.
And
Especially.
Eric, I'd like to add, Eric, if you have these ticket numbers for these 500 and you do see a repeat offender, please send it to the district manager, the ticket numbers, and we can forward this to the 52nd precinct as well to see why they keep getting closed. I'm not sure if you got Jade's email from earlier in the chat, but I'll repost it again. Feel free to send her the ticket numbers, and we can forward this to the 52nd precinct to find out why they're not, what we can do about this repeat offender.
Okay, thank you.
And Officer Costa, we do have the last question of the night from Seth. So this is regarding religious services that are occurring every weekend at 2487 Crescent Avenue. Seth has submitted multiple 311 complaints about the group, I'm guessing making a lot of noise. What they would like to know, like, what is the process or what are the rules regarding this type of service in public space? And also the last one is regarding a vegetable truck that still continues to sit across from 2487 Crescent Avenue in front of Citibank. They never move, not even when the street is cleaning. Why is that? And they submitted their 301 complaints for reference on the chat.
Let me just run that down again. So the first location for the religious services was it 2487 Crescent? Hello?
I believe so. I believe so. That's
So they're
Yes.
both
the
are they
chat.
both in the same area there by the bank?
Yeah, it sounds like, yes.
Okay, yeah. I believe it's there's a group there that's been out there with some sound devices. If am I wrong? I think they've had microphones and speakers.
Yes, that's nice.
Yeah.
Correct.
Again, the patrol officers can't see if they even have a permit for it. Depending if they did pull a permit or not, that's something I wouldn't know, but they can pull a permit. That's something, like I said, if you put it over 311, they can go. Any updates in the past, like I said, I would have to look into it. The vegetable truck, I'm not too sure of, but like I said, I'll note it for Sector B, P.O. Lindquist and Romero, and I'll see if they could take a ride over there and see what's going on. I am familiar with the noise complaint, but I'm not too familiar with the vegetable truck and what they have, if they actually even can be there. So I would have to look into that for you.
Yeah, he's
The
saying
truck
the
is
truck
over
is there
there.
now.
Right. And they're taking over, I guess, the electric pole light. So that must be illegal unless they have some sort
Yeah.
of permit, right, to take.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they
someone
can't
to
do
go check
that.
that out.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Yeah, I'll like I said, I'm writing it all down for you guys. I'm gonna relay the message as much as I can, and hopefully we get some results out of that, especially with the noise.
And Officer,
frustrating.
and Officer, I'm sorry, one more last question before we complete the public portion. Due to recent events, on, for example, the issue that we had with Sunrise, the subway and cameras now working. Has there been any reviews about the cameras in our local community, like in our precinct? Or is that a different department that will have to look into that?
It's a different department. I know the subways; those are MTA cameras. we don't have like direct NYPD access to those as we do those NYPD cameras on the street. That's definitely MTA. In
So
terms of
that
any,
more for the transportation committee, more or less. We should bring that up there.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we don't have, we access them, after the fact with them, but I don't think we have, only our Argus cameras is what we can pull up really immediately. But yeah, that's something to bring up to them.
Sounds good. Okay, so that concludes our portion for questions for NYPD 56. So off the course, I know you had some last updates regarding NCO's meetings coming up.
Yeah, so on April 20th, we're gonna have the NCO David meeting. That's gonna be at, I believe, the reservoir on the park, the reservoir station over there. Give me a moment, I'll get the address for you. It's gonna be on our Twitter page. So if you want to look on the Twitter to get the address, I believe it's inside of the park area. NCO Adam meeting is coming up May 10th. That's going to be in Monroe College in person. So both meetings are going to be in person. And then National Night Out, which is one of my favorite nights, it's going to be August 2nd. We're going to tentative time. It's still going to be in Poe Park. Believe it starts at 2 or 3 tentatively, but that's the date and the location. So that's all I have now. Other than that, yeah, those are my announcements. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Officer Acosta from 52nd Precinct. Again, thank you, NYPD, for all the work you do. Special thanks to all the presents. Thank you to Bronx DA and to CCRB for joining us this evening. Before I close out, I do want to make sure, operational-wise, do we have, before we close out, any representative from OEMS this evening that would like to give an update on any items? Okay. And last operational item, calling user 1, are you by any chance Mahari? Want to make sure for attendance. Okay. So Seth, I will make sure to respond to your chat about that. And before we, might as well. Officer Costa, since we do have you on the line, do you know when the next precinct community affair meeting is going to take place?
Give me one moment. I believe I got something on the email. If you just give me 1 second, I'll be able to look it up for you, and I'll chime in 1 second.
That's great. So while Officer Costa is looking at, our next meeting will take place tentatively on May 12th, 2022. Again, we invite the whole public to come. Please let your neighbors know. And we'll just give Officer Costa another second there.
Hello, Victor.
Yeah, that actually today.
Yes.
Hello.
Halen, calling user number 1. How are you?
Yes, hello, Victor. It's Maharani.
Nice seeing you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Yes, Officer Costa, go ahead.
Yeah, so I got this from the community council meeting. Looks like it's going to be a Zoom meeting. I'm sorry, it says it's going to be held at 2501 Jerome Avenue on the 28th, from 7 to 9. That will be posted up pretty soon. So we're going to put that up on the Twitter page. My flyers think it's a little bit off. It says Zoom meeting and in person, but it looks like it's going to be in person, but I'll update that on the Twitter page. It looks like an error on the flyer.
Thank you so much. So it seems like the 28th, we'll make sure to add that to the minutes. And again, to the public, feel free to follow. I believe NYPD does have a Twitter page, the NYPD 52nd Precinct, which gets updated with the most recent information. I want to open it up to the community members. If I can get a second to adjourn to next meeting.
Second.
No committee.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Great. Thank you, everyone. As always, have a good night, and we'll see you next time. And please be on the lookout for minutes. And tentatively, I believe this will also be posted on Bronx Community Board 7's YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Victor.